beneath the flashy dust of skyrocketing numbers on the Wall Street tickers. Between the hypnotic glow of gold bars tucked away in private vaults, and under the cold, calculated announcements of new tax codes, there is an invisible hand quietly pulling every single string. It is inflation. Most people are still chasing the next stock rally. They're diving into gold fevers. They're bracing for new tax laws as if these were just isolated events. But the truth is much darker. Everything you see is just a pawn on the board. A grand game where the master player is inflation, a silent force, yet powerful enough to rewrite the economic fate of the world. Are you ready to step into the labyrinth? To a place where every trail leads to a single hidden truth? Welcome to the Invisible Driver, the place for truths society doesn't want you to know. The first thing we need to dismantle is the myth of fair money. You've probably heard the news about the Federal Reserve pumping trillions into the economy to save it. But have you ever wondered why that money never seems to find its way into your bank account? The answer is a bitter truth called the Cantillon Effect. Think of the economy like a grand banquet. The people standing closest to the kitchen, the big banks, the hedge funds, and the massive corporations. They get the food while it's hot, fresh, and abundant. When the Fed prints money, these elite players are the first to touch it. They use that fresh cash to buy up real estate in your neighborhood and stocks on Wall Street long before the prices start to rise. By the time that money finally trickles down to your paycheck, it's already too late. The price of your rent has spiked. The price of your groceries has skyrocketed. And that raise you worked so hard for? It's already been eaten alive by the very inflation that the elites created. In this game, wealth isn't just about how much you have. It's about how close you stand to the printer. If you're waiting for your salary to make you rich, you are the person arriving at the party when the food is gone. The guests are leaving, and the host is handing you the bill. You are not a guest at this banquet. You are the one paying for it. And speaking of things you're paying for without even knowing it, let's look at the shiny distraction they use to keep you from seeing the truth. That leads us to our second key: the illusion of gold. The second thing you need to understand is that the gold price on your screen is a lie. We are told that gold is skyrocketing, but the truth? Gold isn't going up. Your dollar is simply falling down. Back in 1971, the world changed forever with what we now call the Nixon shock. In a single moment, the United States severed the link between the dollar and gold. Since then, our money has been backed by nothing but promises from a government that is $34 trillion in debt. Let's look at the math of your disappearing life. In 1970, a $20 bill could buy you a cart full of groceries, a fancy dinner for two, and still have enough left over for a tank of gas. Today, that same $20 barely covers a couple of avocado toasts and a mediocre coffee. Did the bread get harder to bake? Did the gas get harder to pump? The answer is no. The assets stayed the same. But the currency is being bled dry. If you bought an ounce of gold 50 years ago, you could buy a high-end, tailor-made suit. If you sell that same ounce today, you can still buy that same suit. The gold didn't gain value. It just didn't lose its soul the way the dollar did. The lesson is simple but painful. You aren't getting poorer because you aren't working hard enough. You are getting poorer because you are saving in a currency designed to melt in your hands. And if the slow death of your savings wasn't enough, the system has another way to reach into your pocket and take what's left. That leads us to the third key: The subscription service you never signed up for. The art of taxation. The third thing is a hard pill to swallow. Taxation is not just about funding roads or schools. In reality, it is the world's most expensive subscription service. One that you never agreed to join, and one you can never cancel. Most people only focus on the income tax. You work 40 hours a week. And the government takes 20 to 30% before you even touch it. But that is just the visible part of the cage. The real killer is the hidden tax. Inflation. Think about it. If the government taxes you at 20%, but then prints enough money to devalue your savings by another 10%, they have effectively taken nearly a third of your life's work. And the best part, they didn't even have to pass a new law to do it. Now, you might ask, are the billionaires paying this too? The answer is a definitive no. The American elite use a strategy called buy, borrow, die. They buy assets that grow in value, like stocks or real estate, instead of selling them and paying taxes. They borrow money against those assets at low interest rates. In the eyes of the law, borrowed money isn't income, so it isn't taxed. They live a life of luxury on tax-free debt, while you struggle to pay taxes on every dollar you earn. The system is designed to punish the worker and reward the owner. Taxation is the invisible fence that keeps the crowd moving exactly where the masters want them to go. They lower taxes for what they want you to do, and raise them for what they want you to stop. You are being herded like sheep through a maze of numbers. But to keep this maze running, they need you to stay hungry. They need you to stay trapped. And that leads us to the fourth key. The engine of the modern world. The beautiful, deadly cage of debt. The fourth thing you must accept is that in America, money is not something you earn. Money is debt. The entire U.S. economy is not fueled by productivity or innovation. It is fueled by the interest you pay on things you can't afford. The masters of the system don't want you to be a free citizen. They want you to be a perpetual debtor. It starts with the student loan trap. Before you even know who you are or how the world works, they convince you to sign a contract for $100,000. They call it an investment in your future. The truth? It's a ball and chain wrapped around your ankle before you've even started the race. Then come the credit cards. Small plastic keys to a paradise you can't pay for. They encourage you to spend money you haven't made, to buy things you don't need, to impress people who don't care. And they keep you in line with a psychological masterpiece called the credit score. Your credit score is not a measure of your financial health. It is a measure of how good of a slave you are, if you pay your debts on their schedule, if you keep the banks profitable. They give you a good score. It is a golden cage designed to make you feel proud of your own chains. Why? Because a man with a mortgage, 2 car payments, and a maxed-out credit card is a man who will never revolt. He is a man who will wake up at 6 a.m. to do a job he hates, just to keep the interest payments flowing. The system doesn't want you to be wealthy. It wants you to be liquid just enough to pay the next bill. But where does all that interest go? Where does that stolen labor end up? The answer lies in the greatest casino ever built. That leads us to the fifth key. The dark secrets of Wall Street. The fifth thing you need to realize is that the stock market is not a mirror of the economy. It is a high-tech laundromat for the elite. You are told that Wall Street is a place where anyone with a dream and a few dollars can build wealth. But in reality, you are entering a battlefield where you are the only one carrying a knife. while the giants have satellite-guided missiles. Have you ever wondered why your trades take a few seconds, while the market moves in milliseconds? The answer is high-frequency trading. Massive firms use supercomputers placed physically close to the exchange servers to front-run your orders. They see what you want to buy before your click even registers. They buy it first, mark up the price, and sell it back to you in the blink of an eye. You are being taxed on every single trade by an algorithm that never sleeps. And then, there are the dark pools, private exchanges where the big banks and hedge funds trade massive blocks of shares in total secrecy. The public doesn't see these prices until the deal is done. They manipulate the supply and demand behind a curtain, leaving the retail investor, people like you, to trade on public information that is already obsolete. The lesson is simple. The stock market is a casino where the house not only owns the cards, but also writes the laws of the game. You aren't an investor, you are liquidity. You are the dumb money fed into the machine to keep the gears turning for those at the top. And when the machine breaks, when the giants gamble too hard and lose, they don't go to jail, they get a check signed by you. That leads us to the sixth key. The myth of the free market and the cult of too big to fail. The sixth thing you have to understand is the biggest lie in modern economics, the lie that we live in a free market, in a real free market. If you make a bad decision, you fail. If you gamble your savings and lose, you lose your house. The bank doesn't care. The government doesn't call. But for the titans of Wall Street, the rules are different. In 2008, and again during the pandemic, we saw the same script played out in front of our eyes. The massive banks and the global airlines took enormous risks to pump up their stock prices and pay out billions in executive bonuses. And when their house of cards collapsed, did they suffer? The answer is a cold, hard no. The government stepped in with your tax dollars to bail them out. They called it stabilizing the economy. But what they actually did was protect the wealth of the 1% while letting the average American sink beneath the waves, while the banks got trillions in fresh cash. Millions of families were being evicted from their homes. This is the hidden religion of our financial system. It is socialism for the rich and brutal, cutthroat capitalism for the poor. When you fail, it's a personal responsibility. When they fail, it's a national emergency. The lesson here is that the system is not designed to protect the citizens. It is designed to protect the infrastructure of the giants. But who are these giants? Who owns the banks? That own the companies? That own your life? That leads us to the seventh key, the illusion of choice. The seventh thing that will keep you up at night is the realization that you don't actually have a choice. When you walk into a grocery store or scroll through your streaming services, you see thousands of brands. You think you are making a choice based on quality or preference. The truth? The answer is almost always the same 10 companies. Whether it's the cereal you eat for breakfast, the shoes on your feet, or the news on your television, it all flows back to a handful of boardroom tables. But it goes deeper than just Pepsi or Nestlé. If you look at the largest shareholders of almost every major corporation in the United States, from Apple to Exxon, from Pfizer to Amazon, you will see two names appear over and over again: BlackRock and Vanguard. These two giants manage trillions of dollars. They own the banks, that own the debt, that owns your house. They own the media that tells you what to think, and the pharmaceutical companies that tell you what to take. You are living in a corporate monopoly disguised as a free market. The lesson is simple. You don't have choices. You have the illusion of choice. The system doesn't care which brand you pick, as long as the money ends up in the same centralized pockets. They own the world, and they need an army of people to keep the wheels turning. That leads us to the 8th key, the modern plantation where they keep you busy for 40 years. The 9-to-5 matrix. The 8th thing you need to hear is a brutal truth about your career. In America, we are raised on the myth of the hard-working American. We are told that if you stay late, if you go the extra mile, if you are loyal to your company, the system will reward you. The answer is a resounding no. The modern workplace is not a family, it is a spreadsheet. And in that spreadsheet, you are not a human being with dreams, fears, or a family to feed. You are a line item in an Excel file labeled human resources. And more specifically, you are a cost that needs to be minimized. Have you noticed that while corporate profits are hitting record highs, your salary barely covers the rising cost of your health insurance? The system doesn't want you to become wealthy. Wealthy people don't need to work jobs they hate. The system needs you just comfortable enough to keep working, but just desperate enough to never quit. Your loyalty is being weaponized against you. The CEO is not buying a new yacht because the company is innovating. He is buying it because your wages have been stagnant for decades while your productivity has soared. The lesson is cold, but necessary. Never be loyal to a company that would post your job opening before your obituary hits the paper if it meant a 1% increase in their share price. You are trading the only non-renewable asset you have, your time, for a currency that they can print out of thin air. And soon, they won't even need to print it. They are preparing a new way to track every second of your labor. That leads us to the 9th key, the final chain, the digital dollar. The 9th thing, and perhaps the most terrifying, is the end of the money you can actually hold in your hand. The architects of the system are preparing for the final phase of the cage. They call it the central bank digital currency, or CBDC, on the surface. They will sell it to you as convenience. No more dirty cash, instant transfers, security. But the truth? The answer is total, absolute control, when your money is 100% digital. Controlled by the central bank, it is no longer a tool for trade. It is a tool for programming your behavior. Imagine a dollar that has an expiration date, a dollar that only works at certain approved grocery stores, a dollar that is automatically frozen if you post an unapproved opinion online. This is not a conspiracy. It is a design. With a digital dollar, privacy is a thing of the past. Every coffee you buy, every book you read, every doctor you visit is logged into a government database in real time. They won't need to tax you manually anymore. They can simply deduct the amount from your wallet at the click of a button. They can stop you from traveling by deactivating your digital wallet at the airport. The CBDC is the final chain. It is the moment where the invisible driver takes the wheel of your life permanently. The system is closing in. The walls of the labyrinth are getting tighter. The question is, now that you see the maze, is there a way out? That leads us to our final key, the exit strategy. So, after all this, is there any hope? The answer is yes. But hope is not a strategy. Only action is. If you want to break the cycle, you must stop playing by their rules. The first thing you must do is opt out of the debt-based lifestyle. The system cannot control a man who owes nothing to anyone. Kill your high-interest debt. Refuse to buy things to impress a society that is designed to keep you broke. Second, move your wealth from their paper promises into hard assets. Gold, silver, land. Assets that cannot be printed away, taxed away, or deleted at the click of a button. Own things that have intrinsic value outside of their digital servers. Third, invest in the one asset that they can never confiscate: your mind. The elites depend on your ignorance. They need you to be confused by their complex terms and boring reports. The moment you understand how money actually works, their power over you evaporates. Stop being a pawn on their board. Start becoming the player who knows the game is rigged. This world is built on a foundation of hidden truths. You can choose to close your eyes and go back to the comfort of the 9-to-5 matrix. Or you can choose to take the wheel of your own life. The choice is yours. If this episode has opened your eyes, give us a like. Share it with someone who is still asleep, and subscribe. Thank you for being here. Stay awake, stay vigilant. I'll see you in the next one. This is the Invisible Driver, the place for truth society doesn't want you to know.